The massive space station Nexus Prime hung in the darkness like a glowing city. It was the size of a small moon, with thousands of lights marking where different alien species lived and worked together. Ships from across the galaxy came here to trade, make deals, and share news from distant worlds. Ambassador Kethvar stood at the main viewing window of the diplomatic center. His tall, thin body and pale blue skin marked him as one of the Zalani people. They were known throughout the galaxy as peaceful traders and skilled diplomats. Today, he was nervous. For months, the Galactic Trade Federation had been watching a small yellow star called Sol. The third planet from that star had developed basic space travel. Their first faster-than-light ship was coming to Nexus Prime today. Kethvar had done this many times before. New species always followed the same pattern. They arrived scared and confused. They begged for protection from stronger neighbors. They traded their world's resources for technology and safety. "Ambassador, they are coming out of hyperspace now," said his assistant. A small, furry creature with large eyes. Through the window, space twisted and bent. Then a ship appeared. It was much smaller than the massive alien vessels around the station. The hull was dark gray metal with simple designs. No fancy decorations or bright colors like most species preferred. The ship moved toward the station with steady purpose. "Send them the standard welcome message," Kethvar said. "Docking Base 7 should be suitable for their primitive technology." Inside the human ship Liberation, Commander Jake Martinez checked his instruments one more time. He was a tall man with dark hair and calm brown eyes. Years of military service had taught him to stay relaxed even in new situations. "Lisa, are you getting good readings on their station?" he asked Science Officer. Lisa Parker looked up from her console. She was a woman in her 30s with red hair tied back in a simple ponytail. "The station is huge, Commander. I count at least 50 different ship designs. The gravity seems to be set at about 3 times Earth normal. Atmosphere is a mixed one. Have never seen before. Sounds like they're trying to accommodate lots of different species," said Chief Engineer Ryan Blake from his station. He was a stocky man, with graying hair and hands stained from years of working with machinery. "That gravity might be tough on some folks, but we should be fine," Jake nodded. On Earth they'd trained in high-gravity environments. It would be uncomfortable, but not dangerous. "Any signs of weapons or threats?" "None that I can detect," Lisa replied. "They seem genuinely peaceful." Liberation docked with a soft thump. Jake could hear the station systems connecting to their ship. Air pressure equalized with a hiss. Through the docking tunnel, he could see bright lights and strange symbols on the walls. "Ready to make history?" Jake asked his crew. They walked through the tunnel and into the alien station. The gravity hit them immediately. It felt like wearing a heavy backpack, but they adjusted their pace and kept walking normally. The air was thick and smelled like metal and ozone. Bright lights that would have hurt human eyes on Earth seemed normal here. A group of aliens waited for them in the docking bay. Jake had studied the files Earth scientists had prepared, but seeing real aliens was still amazing. The tall blue one in fancy robes had to be the ambassador. Others looked like insects, plants, creatures from Earth's deepest oceans. Ambassador Kethvar stepped forward carefully. The gravity that made most visitors stumble or fall seemed to have no effect on these humans. They walked normally, breathed easily, and showed no signs of stress from the harsh environment. "Welcome to Nexus Prime," Kethvar said through a translation device. "I am Ambassador Kethvar of the Zalani. We are honored to meet you." Jake smiled and extended his hand. "Commander Jake Martinez of Earth. These are my officers, Lisa Parker and Ryan Blake. We are grateful for this opportunity to meet you." The handshake was firm and confident. Kethvar had expected a weak, nervous grip from a primitive species. Instead, Jake's hand was strong and steady. The ambassador tried not to show his surprise. "Please follow me to the diplomatic center. We have prepared a comfortable environment for you." They walked through corridors filled with dozens of different alien species. Most moved slowly and carefully in the heavy gravity. Some rode in floating chairs or wore mechanical assistants. Suits. The humans simply walked and talked normally, looking around with obvious curiosity and interest. The diplomatic center was a large room with soft lighting and lower gravity. Most species visibly relaxed when they entered. The humans showed no change at all. "We hope this environment is more suitable," Kethvar said. "The station's normal environment was fine," Jake replied. "But thank you for your consideration." Lisa was already taking readings with a small device. "You have managed to create a stable environment for so many different species. The engineering must be incredibly complex." Ryan was examining the walls and ceiling. "Construction techniques are different from ours, but very effective. How do you handle stress distribution with this much variable gravity?" Their questions surprised Kethvar. Most new species were overwhelmed and frightened. These humans were asking technical questions like experienced engineers. Before he could answer, alarms began ringing throughout the station. Red lights flashed, and an automated voice announced in dozens of languages, "Emergency drill in progress. All civilians report to safety bunkers immediately. This is a drill." Kethvar relaxed. These drills happen regularly to keep everyone prepared for real emergencies. Around the diplomatic center, aliens began moving toward marked exits that led to protected areas. The humans did not move toward the exits. "Which way is the source of the emergency?" Jake asked. "I beg your pardon," Kethvar said. "The emergency? Where is it happening? How can we help?" The ambassador stared at them. "It is only a drill. Should proceed to the safety bunkers with the others." Lisa was already checking her readings. "Commander, I am detecting elevated energy signatures from Section 12 that is not on our route to the bunkers." "Understood," Jake said. He turned to Kethvar. "Ambassador, with your permission, my people would like to assist with whatever emergency response is needed. But you are civilians, guests. You should seek safety, not run toward danger." Ryan laughed. "Sir, with respect, we are not the kind of people who run away when others might need help." The drill ended after 10 minutes. The aliens began returning to their normal activities, chatting about how well they had performed. Kethvar was still trying to understand what he had witnessed. "People did not seek safety," he said to Jake. "No, sir. Our first instinct is usually to see if we can help fix the problem, even when you do not know what the problem is, even when it might be dangerous. Especially then," Lisa said. "That is when help is needed most." Before Kethvar could respond, the alarms rang again. This time the announcement was different. "Containment breach in Industrial Sector 7. All non-essential personnel evacuate immediately. Emergency response teams to stations." Real fear appeared on alien faces throughout the diplomatic center. This was not a drill. Industrial Sector 7 housed dangerous manufacturing processes. A containment breach could release toxic chemicals or radiation. "Now you must go to the bunkers," Kethvar said urgently. The humans were already moving, but not toward the exits. "Lisa, what kind of breach?" Jake asked. "Looks like chemical contamination. Atmospheric processors are trying to contain it, but they are failing." "Ryan, do we have any equipment that might help? Got some basic protection gear on the ship?" "Not much, but better than nothing." "Good. Let's go see what we can do." Kethvar watched in horror as the humans headed toward the most dangerous part of the station. Every instinct he had screamed that this was wrong. Rational beings fled from danger. They sought safety and left problems for others to solve. These humans were running straight into a situation that could kill them, and they were smiling. An hour later, the emergency was over. The humans had helped the station's emergency teams contain the breach and clean up the contamination. They had worked in conditions that would have killed most species, treating it like an interesting puzzle to solve. As they returned to the diplomatic center, Kethvar realized that everything the Federation thought they knew about new species was wrong. These were not primitive creatures. Seeking protection, these were something else entirely. Dr. Isolpreme adjusted her 8 delicate arms as she read the report for the 3rd time. Her species, the Quantum, were known throughout the galaxy as the best scientists and researchers. Their pale purple skin and multiple limbs allowed them to work on complex problems that would confuse other species. But this report about the new species called humans made no sense at all. Impossible, she muttered in her clicking language. Her assistant, a young quantum named Vel-7, looked up from his own workstation. "Problem with the Earth species data, Doctor?" he asked. "These readings cannot be correct. According to Ambassador Kethvar's report, these humans walked normally, in 3 times their home gravity. They breathed our standard atmosphere mix without protection. And when there was danger, they ran toward it instead of away." Vel-7's skin changed to a confused blue color. Perhaps the ambassador made errors in his observations. Dr. Isel Prime shook her head with all 4 of her eyes closed in thought. "Kethvar is one of our most careful diplomats. If he says, 'This happened,' it happened. But the implications are disturbing." She pulled up star charts on her main screen. The Sol system appeared as a small yellow near the edge of what most species considered civilized space. 3rd planet from the star. Basic information showed it was a water world with a single large moon. "Request detailed planetary data on Earth," she commanded the computer. Information began flowing across her screens. As she read, her skin shifted from purple to a sickly green color. Vel-7 noticed the change and moved closer. "Doctor, are you finding? This planet should not support intelligent life," she whispered. "Look at these readings. Gravity is variable, but averages 1.2 times galactic standard. Atmospheric pressure varies wildly with weather patterns. The entire surface is covered with life forms that compete violently for resources." She pulled up more data. Temperature ranges from freezing to boiling across different regions. It's massive storms that would destroy cities. Earthquakes that split the ground open. Volcanoes that poison the air. And look at this biological data. The screen filled with images of Earth creatures. Lions with massive teeth. Sharks that had not changed in millions of years because they were already perfect killing machines. Tiny insects that could kill with poison. Plants that could eat animals. "Every single life form on this planet is designed to survive by fighting," Dr. Isel Prime said. "Even the plants have thorns and toxins. The smallest creatures carry diseases that could wipe out entire alien populations." Vel-7's skin turned white with fear. Humans evolved on this world. Not just evolved. They became the dominant species. They conquered every environment on the planet. Frozen wastelands, burning deserts, deep oceans, high mountains. They built cities in places that would kill most galactic species in minutes. Dr. Isel Prim began typing rapidly. "I need to see these humans for myself. Send a message to Nexus Prime. Request that human volunteers come to our research station for detailed study. Tell them it is for cultural exchange and mutual understanding." 3 days later, a small human shuttle arrived at research station. Alpha 29. Dr. Isel Prim watched through protective screens as 3 humans exited their craft. Marine Sergeant Kevin Hall was a large man with scars on his face and hands. Communications Officer Amy Foster was smaller but moved with the same confident strength. Medical Technician Chris Baker looked around the station with obvious curiosity. "Welcome to our research facility," Dr. Isel Prime said through speakers. She did not want to meet them in person until she understood what they were capable of. "Thank you for having us," Kevin said. "We are excited to learn about your science and share information about our own world." "Yes, please follow the guide. Lights 2, Laboratory 7. We have prepared some simple tests to help us understand your biology and psychology." The humans followed the lights through corridors designed for multiple species. They moved easily through areas where gravity shifted and air pressure changed. Other alien researchers watched them through windows, making notes on their behavior. In Laboratory 7, Dr. Isel Prim had prepared what most species would consider a challenging but safe environment. Gravity was set to twice galactic standard. The air contained trace amounts of chemicals that would make most beings slightly uncomfortable but not sick. Lighting was bright enough to cause eye strain. The humans entered the room and looked around with interest. "It feels like a heavy day back home," Kevin commented. "Not too bad." Amy was already examining the equipment. "What? These sensors are very advanced. What kind of data are you hoping to collect?" Chris had found a medical scanner and was reading its display. "This is fascinating technology, much more detailed than our current systems. Dr. Azel Prime spoke from her safe room next door.
We would
like to run some basic physical tests. Nothing dangerous, just to understand how your bodies work. No problem, Kevin said. What do you need us to do? First test was simple endurance. Most species could walk on a treadmill for about 10 minutes before needing rest. Kevin ran for 2 hours before Dr. Azel Prime asked him to stop. His heart rate and breathing had increased, but he showed no signs of serious stress. How do you feel? She asked. Good, that was a nice warm-up. Do you want me to do some real exercise now? Dr. Azel Prime checked her readings 3 times. According to her instruments, Kevin had just performed at a level that would kill most galactic species, and he was asking for more. The second test. Measured reaction to stress. Amy was placed in a simulation where she had to solve puzzles while alarms rang and lights flashed. Most species became confused and made errors within minutes. Amy worked steadily for an hour, solving each puzzle faster than the last one. This is fun, she said during a break. It reminds me of training simulations back home. Do you have any? Harder ones. Dr. Azel Prime was starting to feel sick. These readings could not be real. The third test was designed to measure pain tolerance. A device would create mild discomfort that most species found unpleasant but bearable. Chris volunteered. To try it, the device activated. Chris winced slightly, but continued talking normally. Interesting sensation, he said. What does this compare to what other species experience? Dr. Azel Prime increased the setting. Chris frowned, but kept talking. She increased it again. And again. Finally, Chris held up his hand. Okay, that is starting to actually hurt. You can stop now. Dr. Azel Prime looked at her readings and nearly fainted. The device was set to a level that should have caused most species to scream and beg for mercy. Chris had described it as starting to actually hurt. I need to ask you some questions about your homeworld, she said, trying to keep her voice calm. Sure. What would you like to know? What do you consider dangerous weather? Kevin thought for a moment. Well, hurricanes can be pretty serious. Tornadoes, too. Blizzards in the mountains. Maybe earthquakes if you are not prepared for them. How do your people handle these dangers? We build stronger houses. Have emergency supplies ready. Sometimes we evacuate if things get really bad. But mostly we just deal with it, Amy added. My hometown gets hit by tornadoes pretty regularly. You learn to watch the sky and have a good basement. Dr. Azel Prime pulled up Earth weather data. On her screen, the storms these humans called normal would flatten most alien cities. The earthquakes they mentioned as mild inconveniences would be classified as major disasters on any civilized world. What about the predators on your world? Chris laughed. Most of the really dangerous ones are extinct now. Bears and big cats. Can be problems in wilderness areas, but they usually avoid humans. Sharks might attack swimmers, but that is pretty rare. The doctor looked at images of earth bears. They were massive creatures with claws longer than her fingers and teeth designed for tearing flesh. These humans consider them minor inconveniences. Venomous creatures? Oh sure, snakes, spiders, some jellyfish. You learn to be careful and keep antidotes handy if you live in areas where they are common. Dr. Azel Prime called up data on Earth. Spiders. Many contained neurotoxins that could kill most galactic species in minutes. Humans treated them as household pests. I need to make some calculations, she said. Please rest in the next room while I review this data. When the humans left, Dr. Azel Prime began the most important work of her career. She fed all the data into the Galactic classification system that rated planets by how dangerous they were. 2 intelligent life. Class 1 worlds were garden paradises where nothing could hurt you. Class V worlds had some dangerous weather or animals. Class X worlds were considered barely habitable, with serious threats to survival. The computer processed Earth's data for several minutes. Then it displayed a result that made Dr. Azel Prime's heart stop beating for a moment. Class 12. Deathworld. She ran the calculation again. Same result. Class 12 worlds were theoretical. Scientists had discussed them, but never found one. They were planets so hostile that life should not be able to develop intelligence. Everything on the planet would be fighting everything else in a constant struggle for survival. But humans had not just survived on a Class 12 death world. They had thrived. They had conquered it. They had built a civilization that was now reaching out to the stars. Dr. Izel Prime opened a new file and began typing her report. The title made her hands shake as she wrote it. General Throckmore of the Federation High Command stared at Dr. Izel Prime's report for the 10th time this week. Species, the Chronari, were natural warriors who had served as the Federation's military backbone for centuries. Their thick gray skin and powerful build made them intimidating to most other species. But this report about the humans made even him nervous. They cannot be as dangerous as this scientist claims, said Admiral Velkus, a floating jellyfish-like creature whose people controlled most of the Federation's naval forces. No species evolves to be that aggressive and remain civilized. Perhaps General Throckmore replied, but we need to know for certain. If these humans are truly apex predators pretending to be diplomats, the Federation must be prepared. Commander? Zix Alpha, a mechanical being whose people built most Federation technology. Process data streams with electronic clicking sounds. Proposal. Controlled testing environment. Observe human responses to crisis scenarios. Measure capabilities. Without revealing our concerns, agreed, the general said. Invite a larger human delegation. Tell them it is cultural exchange. Create situations that will show us what they are really capable of. The invitation reached Earth 3 days later. Admiral Nicole Grant read it with excitement. Woman in her 50s with gray hair and calm blue eyes. Years of commanding space missions had taught her to see opportunities in every challenge. This is exactly what we hoped for, she told her team. A chance to really understand galactic civilization and show them we can be valuable partners. Tactical specialist Ben Wright was a thin man with sharp eyes who studied alien military history. The Federation has been around for thousands of years. Their experience could teach us a lot about space combat and diplomacy. Xenarchaeologist Megan Stone was younger, with brown hair and an enthusiasm for discovering new cultures. Think about all the different species we will meet. Each one represents a completely different way of thinking and living. The human delegation arrived at Federation Training Complex Omega-7 on a moon orbiting the capital world. The facility was designed to train military officers from across the galaxy. Admiral Grant brought 12 humans with various specialties, all eager to learn from their new alien friends. General Throckmore met them at the landing platform. He wore a full military dress uniform and tried to project authority and strength. The humans stepped off their ship and looked around with obvious interest. Welcome to Complex Omega-7, he said formally. I am General Throckmore. You will participate in cultural exchange. Exercises designed to help us understand each other better. Admiral Grant smiled and extended her hand. Admiral Nicole Grant. We are honored to be here and excited to learn from your experience. The handshake was firm and confident. General Throckmore noted that the human showed no intimidation despite his imposing appearance. Most species at least stepped back when they first saw a Chronari warrior. Your first exercise will be a historical simulation, he explained as they walked through the complex, the Vantor siege. It is considered one of the most difficult military problems in galactic history. The humans listened with interest as alien instructors explained the scenario. 500 years ago, Federation forces had been trapped on the planet Vantor by enemy ships. The siege lasted 6 months before the trapped forces surrendered. Every Federation military academy used this as an example of how small mistakes could lead to total failure. The simulation places you in command of the trapped forces, explained Commander Zix Alpha. All previous attempts by our best students have resulted in failure. The goal is to see how long you can survive before surrender becomes necessary. Team leader Scott Davis was a former Special Forces officer with calm brown eyes and steady hands. He studied the tactical display with his team for 30 minutes. Interesting problem, he said finally. Who says we have to stay trapped? The alien instructors looked confused. The enemy controls orbit. You cannot escape. We cannot escape with the ships we have, Scott agreed. But what if we make new ships? Ben Wright was already working on calculations. The planet has good mineral resources. We can build basic manufacturing. We could construct small fighters. The enemy would destroy any manufacturing facilities, protested a Chronar instructor. Not if they are underground, said Meganstone, and not if we make them look like something else. Scott's team spent 2 hours planning their approach. They began the simulation. Instead of trying to hold defensive positions like every other group had done, they immediately began secret construction projects. Underground factories disguised as mining operations, small fighters built to look like cargo ships, training programs that turned civilians into guerrilla fighters. 6 months into the simulation, when the original forces had surrendered in real history, Scott's humans launched their counterattack. Dozens of small ships appeared from hidden bases on the planet. The enemy fleet, expecting another surrender message, was caught completely off guard. Simulation complete, announced the computer. Human forces achieved total victory. Enemy fleet destroyed or captured. The alien instructors stared at their displays in shock. In 500 years, no one had even imagined the strategy the humans used. They had turned a hopeless defensive situation into an aggressive campaign that destroyed a superior enemy. How did you think of this approach? General Throckmore asked. Scott shrugged. Back home we have a saying, when you are backed into a corner, the only way out is through your enemies. The second test involved a medical emergency. The humans were given a scenario based on the plague ship Xarian, where a deadly disease had killed most of the crew. Standard. Procedure was to establish quarantine and wait for the infection to burn itself out. Most military students focused on containment protocols. Xenobiologist Rachel Morgan volunteered to lead this exercise. She was a woman in her 30s who had studied diseases on dozens of different worlds. When the simulation began, she immediately asked for access to the ship's medical bay. The protocol is to maintain quarantine, explained the alien instructor. Direct contact with infected areas is forbidden. How can I treat people if I cannot examine them? Rachel asked. And how can I understand the disease if I cannot study it directly? The risk is too great. Many students who attempted direct intervention were infected and died in the simulation. Rachel looked at her team. What kind of protection do we have? Medical. Technician Chris Baker checked their equipment. Basic environmental suits. Some portable medical gear. Not much, but it is better than nothing. Good enough, Rachel said. Let's go save some people. The alien observers watched in amazement as the humans entered the most dangerous parts of the simulated plague ship. They worked directly with infected patients, took samples of the disease, and began developing treatments in real time. Their environmental suits were damaged. They improvised repairs and kept working. Within 6 hours, Rachel had identified the disease, created a treatment protocol, and saved 90% of the infected crew. The previous record was 30% survival with 0 direct contact. How did you work so effectively under such dangerous conditions? Asked the medical instructor. Someone had to, Rachel replied simply. People were dying. We could either try to help or watch them die from a safe distance. The third test was the one General Throckmore had been waiting for. The Corvane paradox was the Federation's ultimate no-win scenario. A disabled ship with civilians aboard was falling toward a planet, and enemy forces controlled the area. Any rescue attempt would result in the destruction of both the civilians and the rescue ships. The test was designed to break the spirit of overconfident students by showing them that sometimes there were no good options. Captain, Tony Reed studied this scenario with his team. He was a man in his 40s with gray streaks in his dark hair and laugh lines around his eyes. He had commanded ships in dangerous situations many times before. So the basic problem is that any ship we send gets destroyed by the enemy, he said. Correct, said the instructor. The enemy has overwhelming firepower in that system. What if we do not send ships? The instructor looked confused. How would you rescue the civilians without ships? Who says we rescue them? The alien observers leaned forward with interest. Was this human about to give up like so many others? What if we rescue the planet instead? Tony continued. Ben Wright caught on immediately. Change the planet's orbit. Move it away from the falling ship. Impossible, protested the instructor. You cannot move an entire planet. We cannot move it quickly, Tony agreed. But we do not need to move it far, just enough to change where the ship will crash. Megan Stone was already calculating. A small change in orbital velocity would shift the planet's position significantly by the time the ship reaches it. How would you change a planet's orbit without the enemy noticing? Asked the instructor. Solar mirrors, Tony said. Position them to focus more sunlight on one side of the planet. The extra heat creates atmospheric expansion that acts like a slow rocket engine. The simulation ran for 3 days of game time. Humans used subtle gravitational effects and solar heating to nudge the planet into a slightly different orbit. When the disabled ship finally crashed, it landed in an ANA, empty ocean, instead of unpopulated cities. High Chancellor Vex 9 floated in the emergency session chamber of the Federation Council. Her crystalline body reflected the worried lights of dozens of different species gathered around the massive circular table. In 3,000 years of Federation history, she had never seen the Council so divided and afraid. The reports from General Thokmor are disturbing, she announced to the assembled representatives. These humans solved our most difficult military problems like they were simple puzzles. If they chose to become enemies, we would have no defense. Ambassador Kethvar shifted nervously. They have shown no hostile intentions. Every interaction has been peaceful and cooperative. That makes them more dangerous, not less, replied Admiral Velkas. Her tentacles moved in agitated patterns as she spoke. We cannot predict what they will do because they do not think like any species we have encountered. The debate continued for hours, with no resolution. Some council members wanted to restrict human contact with the Federation. Others argued for closer cooperation. A few suggested military action before humans became too powerful to stop. The argument was interrupted by urgent alarms throughout the chamber. Communication Officer Dal 7 appeared on the main screen, his scales flickering with stress patterns. High Chancellor, we have a crisis. The Hegemony has launched a massive assault on our outer systems. Theion 7 is under attack. Our defense. Fleets are falling back on all fronts. The council chamber fell silent. The Hegemony was the Federation's oldest enemy. For 500 years, they had terrorized the galaxy's rim worlds with brutal efficiency. Their dark ships appeared without warning, destroyed everything that resisted, and enslaved the survivors. No Federation force had ever successfully stopped a major Hegemony assault. How many ships? High Chancellor, Vex 9 asked. Over 300 battle cruisers. They are using new weapons we have never seen before. Our defensive positions at Theion 7 will not hold more than 2 days. Velkas reviewed tactical data with growing despair. We have 40 ships in the system. Standard doctrine calls for immediate evacuation of civilian populations. That means abandoning 12 million people to slavery, General Thokmor said grimly. The Hegemony does not take prisoners, they take property. High Chancellor Vex 9 made the hardest decision of her long career. Send a message to the humans. Ask if they will help us defend Theion 7. Is that wise? Asked Ambassador Kethvar. We are asking them to face our most dangerous enemy. If they refuse, we look weak. If they agree and fail, we lose our only potential new allies. If we do nothing, we lose Theion 7 and its people, the Chancellor replied. The humans have shown unusual capabilities. Perhaps they can find a solution we cannot see. The message reached Admiral Patricia Clark aboard the human battleship Endeavor as it patrolled near Earth. She was a tall woman with silver hair and hard gray eyes, who had fought in 3 different wars before humanity reached the stars. When she read the Federation's request, she immediately called her senior staff. The situation is bad, she told them, displaying Federation tactical reports on the main screen. The Hegemony has numerical superiority and better weapons. Federation forces are retreating on all fronts. Fleet Commander Gary Stevens studied the enemy positions. He was a stocky man with graying beard who had earned his rank through 20 years of difficult space missions. Their attack pattern is interesting, very organized, very predictable. They seem to rely on overwhelming force rather than tactical innovation. Special Operations Leader Helen Torres was younger, but had led commando missions in hostile territory across 2 star systems. What do we know about Hegemony psychology and doctrine? They're conquerors, Admiral Clark explained. They believe that superior force always wins. They have never encountered serious resistance because most species surrender when faced with hopeless odds, and they are attacking people who asked us for help, Helen said simply. That makes this easy. Admiral Clark smiled. Agreed. Gary, prepare the fleet for immediate departure. Helen, brief your people on Hegemony ship designs. We leave for Theion 7 in 6 hours. What is our mission objective? Gary asked. Save the planet? Protect the civilians? Show these Hegemony bullies that they picked the wrong fight. The human fleet consisted of 12 ships, much smaller than the massive Federation vessels, but built for speed and flexibility. As they approached the Theion system, they could see the battle already in progress. Hegemony ships surrounded the planet like a dark cloud. Federation forces fought desperately, but were clearly losing. Admiral Clark to Federation Command. Patricia broadcast on all frequencies. Human relief force has arrived. Please coordinate your retreat to allow us room to work. Admiral Velkis responded immediately. Admiral, you should withdraw. The enemy has overwhelming numbers. This fight cannot be won. Thank you for the advice, Patricia replied politely. We will take it under consideration. Please pull your ships back so we do not accidentally hit them. Colonel Derek Murphy commanded the human ground forces that were already deploying to Theion VII's surface. He was a lean man with scars on his face and a reputation for winning impossible battles. His troops moved quickly to support Federation defenders who were falling back toward the main city. What is the tactical situation? He asked the local Federation commander, an insect-like being whose compound eyes showed fear and exhaustion. Hopeless, the alien replied. The Hegemony has landed 50,000 troops with heavy weapons. We have 8,000 defenders with light arms. Standard doctrine requires immediate surrender to prevent civilian casualties. Derek looked at the tactical display. The enemy had superior numbers and equipment. They controlled most of the planet's surface. Any reasonable military analysis said the battle was over. Has anyone told the enemy that we are not reasonable? He asked his sergeants. The human defense of Theion 7 did not follow any military doctrine in Federation databases. Instead of holding defensive lines, human forces moved constantly. They appeared behind enemy positions, struck fast, and vanished before the Hegemony could respond. They used the planet's geography in ways that confused alien military observers. When Hegemony forces tried to corner human units in mountain valleys, they discovered that humans could climb cliffs that other species considered impossible barriers. When they bombed suspected human positions, they found empty caves connected to tunnel systems that had not existed the day before. How are they moving so quickly? Demanded Hegemony Ground Commander Vexcaller. Our sensors show human forces in 6 different locations simultaneously. They appear to be using underground passages, reported his intelligence officer. But there are no tunnel systems in this area, according to our planetary surveys. Then they built them, Vexcaller. Realized with growing frustration, in less than 2 days they built military tunnels through solid rock. Space combat was equally confusing for the Hegemony fleet. Human ships moved in patterns that violated basic tactical principles. They split their small force into even smaller groups that should have been easily destroyed. Instead, these tiny squadrons appeared everywhere at once, striking Hegemony ships with precise attacks before disappearing into space. Captain Susan Mitchell commanded the human destroyer, relentless in a battle against 5 Hegemony cruisers. Her ship was damaged and outnumbered, but she continued attacking with tactics that made no sense to enemy observers. Human vessel, you are surrounded, transmitted the Hegemony fleet commander. Surrender, and your crew will be spared. Thank you for the offer, Susan replied calmly. But we are just getting started. She flew her damaged ship straight through the enemy formation, using debris from destroyed Federation vessels as cover. The Hegemony ships, designed for long-range bombardment, could not target her effectively at close range. Her crew fired weapons while manually repairing damage in real time. How are they still fighting? Asked a Hegemony gunner. Their ship should have been destroyed 10 minutes ago. Their crew is working outside the ship in vacuum suits while under fire, reported the sensor officer. This is not normal behavior. The Hegemony had built their empire by breaking the will of their enemies. Superior firepower and overwhelming. Numbers had always been enough to force surrender. But humans did not behave like other species. The worse the situation became, the more determined they grew. When hegemony forces deployed weapons of mass destruction against human positions, expecting immediate surrender, they discovered that humans had already prepared for such attacks. Underground shelters built in days, emergency supplies hidden throughout the combat zone, backup plans for backup plans. They knew we would use these weapons, realized Hegemony Admiral Dex Prime. How did they know? It's intelligence officer. Checked historical databases. According to their planetary records, mass extinction events occur regularly on their homeworld. They plan for total destruction as a normal part of military strategy. The battle reached its turning point when the Hegemony attempted their ultimate tactic. They threatened to destroy Theion VII cities if human forces did not surrender. Throughout galactic history, no species had been willing to sacrifice civilian populations to continue fighting. The Battle of Theion VII entered its third day, with a discovery that shook the foundations of galactic warfare. Admiral Patricia Clark's desperate charge toward the Hegemony bombardment ships had not resulted in the expected massacre. Instead, something unprecedented happened. The Hegemony fleet began to retreat. Strategic Commander Alex Turner analyzed the enemy withdrawal from his position aboard the human command ship. He was a calm man with sharp green eyes, who specialized in understanding how different species thought during combat. What he saw in the Hegemony patterns made no sense according to their historical behavior. They have superior numbers, better weapons, and defensive positions, he reported to Admiral Clark. By every military calculation, they should press their advantage. Instead, they are pulling back to long-range positions. Admiral Clark studied the tactical display. What changed? Said Field Operative Maria Santos from her position on Theion VII's surface. She was coordinating ground operations while under heavy fire. The Hegemony has spent 500 years fighting species that follow predictable rules. When faced with overwhelming force, civilized species either surrender or retreat to minimize casualties. Communications specialist Pete Collins intercepted enemy transmissions from his monitoring station. Admiral, you need to hear this. Hegemony Command is arguing among themselves. Their field commanders are requesting permission to withdraw from combat zones. Withdraw? Admiral Clark asked. They are winning by every standard measure. Not according to their psychology, Alex realized. The Hegemony built their empire on breaking enemy morale. They use superior force to make resistance seem hopeless. When species surrender, it confirms their belief that they are naturally superior. Maria's voice crackled over the communication system as explosions echoed in the background. But we are not surrendering. We are not even slowing down. Every time they hit us harder, we hit back faster. On Theion VII's surface, Colonel Derek Murphy was discovering exactly how much the human approach confused enemy forces. His troops had abandoned all defensive positions and were actively hunting Hegemony units across the planet. This violated every principle of military logic when facing a superior enemy. Sir, the aliens are acting strange, reported Sergeant Tom Bradley, a veteran of Earth's worst conflict zones. They keep expecting us to retreat when they bring in heavy weapons. When we advance instead, their formations start falling apart. Derek nodded as he watched enemy positions through his field glasses. They have never fought anyone who responds. 2. Escalation with counter-escalation. Their whole strategy depends on us being reasonable. Good thing we are not. Tom replied with a grin. The psychological effect of human tactics began spreading through Hegemony ranks like a virus. For centuries, their warriors had believed they were the galaxy's apex predators. They conquered through fear, using overwhelming force to break enemy spirits before battles were even fought. Humans changed that equation completely. Instead of becoming demoralized when faced with superior firepower, they became more focused. When threatened with destruction, they advanced more aggressively. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to treat increasingly dangerous situations as interesting challenges, rather than reasons to surrender, Captain. Susan Mitchell demonstrated this perfectly during her engagement with the Hegemony heavy cruiser, Dominator. Her ship was outgunned, outnumbered, and taking damage from multiple enemies. According to all galactic military doctrine, she should have withdrawn to preserve her crew and ship. Instead, she flew directly at the largest enemy vessel. "Human ship, you are damaged and alone," transmitted Hegemony Captain Vorth9. "Withdraw now, and we will allow you to escape." "That is very kind of you," Susan replied politely, "but I am exactly where I want to be." Her ship, the Relentless, had lost half its weapons and was venting atmosphere from several hull breaches. Her crew was working in spacesuits, manually repairing systems while under fire. Any rational captain would have retreated. Susan flew into the enemy formation and began a close-range attack that no sane person would attempt. She used her ship's smaller size to dart between larger enemy vessels, making it impossible for them to fire without hitting each other. "She is using our own ships as shields," realized Hegemony Gunner Keck 7. "How did she know we would not fire through our own vessels?" "Because she understands us better than we understand her," Captain Vorth9 said with growing unease. "She is counting on our predictable behavior, while remaining completely unpredictable herself." The pattern repeated across the entire battle zone. Human forces consistently did the unexpected thing, not because they had superior technology or numbers, but because they thought differently about survival and acceptable risk. When the Hegemony deployed their feared psychological warfare division, expecting to break human morale with displays of captured prisoners and threats of torture, they got results opposite to everything in their experience. "You will surrender or watch your comrades suffer," transmitted Hegemony Interrogator Prime Vex to Colonel Derek Murphy. "You just made this personal," Derek replied calmly. "My people do not respond well to threats against our friends." Within hours, human forces had rescued every captured prisoner and destroyed the psychological warfare division's entire facility. They accomplished this by using tactics so aggressive that Hegemony commanders could not predict or counter them. Commander Roy Fisher led the rescue mission with a team that included explosives expert Jack Turner and medic Linda Cooper. They approached the enemy facility not by stealth or siege, but by direct assault through the most heavily defended area. "This approach makes no tactical sense," observed Hegemony Defense Coordinator Lex Alpha as he watched human forces charge directly into concentrated firepower. They should be eliminated within minutes. Instead, the humans moved through the defensive fire like it was a minor inconvenience. They had trained on Earth, where even training exercises were more dangerous than most species' actual combat. Heavy weapons fire was just another environmental hazard to overcome. The breaking point came when Hegemony Supreme Commander Vorthprim made the decision that had ended every previous war in their favor. He ordered the complete destruction of Theion, the 7th primary city, threatening to kill 2 million civilians if human forces did not surrender immediately. Throughout galactic history, this ultimate threat had never failed. No species would sacrifice millions of innocent lives to continue a hopeless fight. Admiral Patricia Clark received the ultimatum while coordinating the space battle above. Darien VII around her on the bridge, her officers waited to see how humanity would respond to an impossible choice. "Admiral," said Communications Officer Kate Young, "the enemy is giving us 10 minutes to surrender, or they begin orbital bombardment." Patricia looked at the tactical display showing Hegemony's ships positioned to destroy the city below. She thought about the alien families sheltering in buildings that could not protect them from orbital weapons. She thought about the Federation representatives who had asked for help. She thought about the simple fact that someone was threatening to murder innocent people. Kate opened a channel to all human forces, all Federation ships, and all Hegemony vessels, she ordered. "Channel open, Admiral." Patricia Clark spoke in a calm, clear voice that carried across the entire star system. "This is Admiral Clark of the Earth Defense Force. To the Hegemony, commanders, you just threatened to murder children. That changes everything. To Federation forces, move to safe positions and watch how Deathworlders handle bullies. To all human personnel, you know what we do to people who hurt kids. No prisoners, no mercy, no retreat." What happened next became known throughout the galaxy as the Theion miracle. Every human ship in the system simultaneously abandoned defensive positions and attacked directly toward the Hegemony fleet. Every human soldier on the planet advanced toward enemy positions regardless of odds or obstacles. Every human crew member worked beyond the limits of physical possibility to keep their weapons firing. It was tactically insane. It should have resulted in the complete destruction of human forces. Instead, it triggered the first mass retreat in Hegemony history. Hegemony warriors, who had terrorized the galaxy for centuries, discovered that there was something worse than death. Facing an enemy that genuinely did not care about survival when protecting others, humans fought with such desperate fury that Hegemony Command realized they could kill every human in the system and still lose the war, because humanity would send more ships and more after that. They would keep coming until every Hegemony world burned or every human was dead, given their history of surviving extinction events. Betting against human survival was poor strategy. 3 days later, Hegemony Supreme Commander Vorth Prime did something that had never happened in his species. Recorded history. He requested peace negotiations. The meeting took place aboard the neutral station Nexus Prime, where humanity's first contact with the Federation had begun just months earlier. Admiral Patricia Clark sat across from representatives of the galaxy's most feared empire, with Federation officials watching in.